what I'll do in the next part of the broadcast is we'll move on to talking about the houses this is going to fall in for each of you by rising sign, and what the themes of those houses are. For those of you who are a little bit more familiar with houses, if you want to take a break and go grab a snack or refill your drink, what have you, while we go over this, that's perfectly fine. In the meantime, we'll move on to part 2 for those who maybe aren't as familiar with the houses and those themes. Okay, so here we go, diving in, houses and themes. If you have Aries rising, this is going to be a 3rd house new moon for you. And 3rd house rules communication and writing. These are Mercury ruled things, right? Teaching and learning is a 3rd house. Experience, travel over short distances, even communication over short distances. Childhood education is a theme of the 3rd house. Siblings and extended family, so things like aunts and uncles and cousins fall under the 3rd house. Your neighbors and your immediate environment. So like your neighborhood or your community, okay? If you have Taurus rising, this is a 2nd house new moon for you. So this has to do with wealth and possessions. It has to do with movable assets. It has to do with money that you earn. Oh, good, Tony. I'm glad you're getting a lot out of it. Thank you for joining me. It's really fun to have you on. I've been enjoying your posts lately. So the 2nd house also has to do with expenses, and it has to do with, so these are 2 of my favorite areas to work with when we have a new or full moon in the 2nd house. Has to do with self-worth, your values, and your priorities. So you want to get really meaty with your intention setting. Those would be some good avenues to explore. But the 2nd house with the new moon is also a great opportunity to look at ways you can boost and expand your income. So if that's something that you're thinking about, do it now, because you'll have the benefit of having an eclipse behind that energy, especially as we move through even to July of 2020 as this eclipse series continues to play out, okay? If you have Gemini rising, ding, 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 that's me. This is a 1st house new moon, so that's personality and identity. It has to do with self-expression, your physical body and your appearance, how you look, the way you dress, the way you wear your hair, things like that. 1st house also has to do with your behavior and your mannerisms and the role that you play in the world. Okay. For Cancer, this will be a 12th house new moon. So that's privacy and seclusion. Spirituality are 12th house themes. Unconscious mind is a 12th house theme. Highly personal or private projects, or things that like solo projects, belong to the 12th house, as do your spiritual practices, institutions of seclusion. Rest and retreat is a theme of the 12th house, and so is escape, the thing, what we do to get away from it all. That's also a 12th house theme, okay? For Leo rising, this will be an 11th house new moon. So this is friends and organizations, hopes and dreams. And so if you are so inclined, this could be a really fantastic opportunity for those of you who have Leo rising or Leo sun to get into telling the story of manifesting a long-held hope or dream, and how you want to bring that to fruition. What does that look like for you? What is that ideal outcome around a hope or dream that you have? Okay. For Virgo rising, this is a 10th house new moon. So that has to do with career and awards, recognition, achievement, your professional life, right? Also has to do with status and reputation and your public life. So if you want to begin something new professionally or in your career, this could be an opportunity to give it some really powerful energy behind your initiation. For Libra rising, this will be a 9th house new moon. So that has to do with higher education. This is the exact opposite of the 3rd house, which is ruled by Gemini naturally. So instead of local communication and short distance travel, it's higher education, long distance travel, long distance communication. Things like publishing and broadcasting, those fall into 9th house, as do religion, philosophy, and law. So it's about the higher mind, right? Not just the analytical mind, it's the higher mind. Scorpio rising, this is going to be an 8th house new moon for you. So this has to do with other people's resources that are at your disposal. Tony says, I'm Scorpio rising with Gemini in my 8th, Cancer moon in the 9th, Rahu, which is the north node for those of us who practice Western, in the 4th. Big solar eclipse for you. It is for me too, Tony. I have Gemini rising. All of this is happening on my descendant. I've got a Saturn opposition going on. I have a couple of other oppositions going on. And I'm having this weird dual Jupiter-Neptune transit, where I have Neptune transiting my Jupiter and Jupiter retrograding over my Neptune. And it's so weird. I can't wait till all of this is over. But I am excited about this particular eclipse because I'm excited to look at forging a new path. That'll be interesting to see what I can come up with for opportunities on how I might forge a new path for myself. And I encourage everyone, like, take it as optimistic as you can. For tonight, we're actually going to get into some visualization and maybe kind of drawing out what it is we want to manifest for ourselves. But 8th house, as the house of other people's money, has to do with resources that come to you through other people in your life. And this could be your parents, it could be extended family, it could be a partner if you have a partner. It can have to do with investment earnings, insurance and taxes, debts even come into 8th house. Inheritance, or if you earn bonus or commission income, those are 8th house concerns. And then if you want to kind of explore more esoteric themes, the 8th house is the house of death, rebirth, and transformation. And I love tapping into that theme of transformation, especially at the new moon. To me, it's really, really powerful, this idea of transformation. 8th house, that's Pluto, it's Scorpio, typically, like the natural sign, the natural ruler. Often that's really painful transformation, but my experience with Pluto transformation is that it's like going through the crucible, right? Coming out the other end, you're stronger, you're better, you're a more evolved version of yourself, starting fresh, starting new, and likely there's been a healing process that's happened. And so the 8th house can be fantastic for that. For those of you who have Sagittarius rising, this will be a 7th house new moon. And so that has to do with partnership, has to do with marriage, with business, relationships with other people in general. What the 7th house also has to do with, though, are things that we reject about our own self, and things that we tend to project onto other people. And when we're talking about that, we're talking about the descendant specifically, which of course is the opposite point of the ascendant. And then the 7th house can also have to do with open enemies and rivals. Okay. And Ashley joined us. It's good to have you, Ashley. And Tony, I hope you find part 2 of the broadcast. Yes, Sally, Sag rising. So you can be, because you're Sag rising, you can be feeling this particular new moon solar eclipse strongly as well. When we have eclipses, they can often activate the opposite sign through reciprocity, through polarity. Okay? So even though you have Sag rising, you may find that a Gemini eclipse affects you in a 1st house sort of way. So just kind of keep your eyes on it. Keep your eye on 1st house and 7th house for potentials to play out, especially if you have a planet or point, like I was saying in the first part of the broadcast, if you have a planet or point near 15 or 16 degrees of an air or fire sign. Okay. For Capricorn rising, this is going to be a 6th house new moon. And so that has to do with work, that has to do with health and diet, it has to do with your daily routines, including your habits and your schedules. And then the 6th house also has to do with pets and employees, right? So service animals and service people. For Aquarius rising, the 5th house is your new moon solar eclipse. So creativity and children, romance and true love, things that we do for pleasure, things that we do for fun, right? The 5th house is the natural house of Leo, which rules the heart. So this has to do with pleasurable activities. Also can have to do with sports and risk-taking and gambling, so keep those things in mind. For Pisces rising, this is a 4th house new moon for you. So home and family, real estate, late life, parents, where we have the ruler of the new moon, Mercury, retrograding in Cancer, which is the natural ruler of the 4th house, which is the domain of home, of family, of mother. You can kind of expect that those themes, there might be like a doubling down on those themes for you if you have Pisces rising. Okay. And so that really kind of wraps up our exploration of the themes of each house that this would be falling in for each of you by rising sign. Like I was saying at the beginning, though, Keep in mind, because this is an eclipse, because it's a really powerful opportunity, you may want to do this for your sun sign too, and just get like double the oomph out of your intention setting. So when we're done with tonight's practice, if you want to do it again, or if you want to repeat it tomorrow during the actual eclipse, you can do it again for your sun sign, and just get like a little extra benefit from it that way. What I'm going to do now, since we've wrapped up part 2, I'm going to move into a deeper discussion about the Gemini archetype and the themes of Gemini.